So Tony, since I wasn't here last month, the minutes won't be on the consent calendar, right? They'll have to be pulled? Okay.
Yeah, so E1 will separate from
Okay,
the
perfect.
revenue, so we'll just vote on them separate. There's only two.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to figure I should cover that before we get going.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Rossmoor Community Services District Regular Board Meeting. Today is June 13th, 2023. And can we get a roll call?
Roll call. Director Shade?
Here.
Director Maynard?
Here.
Director Searles?
Here.
President DeMarco?
Here.
Director Barkey won't be with us tonight.
Okay. And I'm told Janae will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today, this evening. Thank you. You can stand right up here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Haven't had to say the Pledge of Allegiance since.
Okay. Mr. Mendoza, update us on presentations?
Yes, sir. We have, with the Youth Center tonight, we have Janae, who will be giving us an overview of the Youth Center programs that we run in conjunction with Los Alamitos Youth Center. And then I will give you a brief overview of the Southern California Bluebird Club
Okay.
box.
All right.
Okay, Janae?
Yep. Welcome back.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. So I don't think that I've introduced myself to you all before, but I'm Janae. I'm the youth programs supervisor, and so I'm fairly new, about 7 months in at the youth center now. And so we've partnered with RCSD for quite a few things recently, the most recent being Camp Shark, which is currently happening. And then before that, we had Arbor Day, and we had our kids' night outs happen here in the auditorium, which have been fantastic. But a lot of our Rossmoor residents are actually in Camp Shark and part of Rascals, which is our after-school program, which is really awesome. And so we really appreciate RCSD's ongoing support of the youth center. We really couldn't do it without it. But yeah, Camp Shark is currently happening for the next 9 weeks. We'll be at Rossmoor Park, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. So kids 5 to 12, come on down. But I'm also open to any questions.
When does the camp start? When is
So the camp started June 12th, so this past Monday.
it's already in full swing?
And it'll go until August 11th.
Are you guys completely full?
No.
You're not?
So we have about 50 spaces left every day.
Okay. And do you have enough volunteers?
We do have plenty of volunteers, but we could always use more. We're a great place for teenagers to get their volunteer hours over the summer because they need them for high school.
Okay, and do you need, what age group do you like your volunteers?
Teenagers, they have to be at least 14.
Any sort of schedule that they need to be available?
No, it's usually whenever they're available, I contact them and then they let me know when they're able to come and I accommodate to them.
Perfect, thank you so much, Janae.
Of course.
I haven't met you.
And now you have. And then we also have our Leadership Academy coming up in just a few weeks in which Mr. Mendoza will be speaking on a panel, which is really awesome.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Janae.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, thanks, Janae. We have a great partnership with the Youth Center, and we're always looking to expand that. We had a presentation by Peggy Blanton from the Southern California Bluebird Club today, and she called in with a family emergency. So I'm just going to give you an overview. She'll be back next month. If you noticed, both here in Rossmoor Park, we have Bluebird boxes all over the park. If you have to walk around, look up, and you'll see them. And basically, the Bluebird Society sends out their volunteers, and they monitor and they clean the boxes and they make sure that they're maintained right, because if the way she explained it, if the birds pick up plastic or whatever and they bring it into the box, they could wrap around their their offsprings and basically be dangerous to the newborn birds. So next week she's going to give you an overview of bluebird history in California, overview of local bluebird population, bluebird box configurations, bluebird nesting habits, and scheduled bluebird box tours of both Rossmoor and Rush Park. So what we've asked them to do is kind of make a schedule where we can publicize and ask the general public to come and just take part, and they'll give you the tour and show you what's going on. They'll bring down the boxes, and you can look inside. Sometimes you might find something, sometimes it's empty. But it's pretty cool. So this has been going on for a while, and our staff really enjoys watching them come and work on the boxes. So next month.
Next month, more info.
Yep.
So we got bluebird boxes. Okay. Thank you, Joe. Okay. Additions to the agenda? I see none. I want to open up public forum. Do we have it? No. Thank you. I have one. It's Maureen Waters. Oh, I got a couple more. Maureen Waters is first.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Maureen Waters, and I live on Walkerly Drive, 26-year resident of Rossmoor. Just a little bit of miscellaneous stuff tonight. First of all, I want to thank the RCSD in combination with the RHA for the graduation parade, along with all the sheriff, the CHP, Seal Beach Police, everybody. I thought it was a fantastic parade. I don't think anything can top the first year because we were in COVID and everything, but I thought there was a lot not that last year's was bad, but there was a lot of improvement this year. So Joe and your peeps, you listened to us, and it was wonderful this year. The kids got into it, and it was just a great time. And then also thank you for the Family Food Fest again, for continuing those this summer. Unfortunately, last year I didn't go to any of them. They fell on bad days for me, but I did go this year. Had a great time, pretty much spent all afternoon at the park. So that was fun. So I just wanted to say thank you for putting those two events on in coordination with the RHA. It's appreciated. And then, of course, I have to put pro pickleball in. So my husband, my friends, and I, we've all had fun playing over there. Some people say, not some people, everyone that I've known loves it over there, and they're hoping that once the temporary nets are gone and we get permanent nets and permanent line striping, that it'll be a more enjoyable playing experience, because right now it's a little bit hard with the temporary nets, and the tape of the lines are coming up and stuff. But with that being said, it's a fun time, people of all ages. I mean, it's funny, even the quote e-bikers get over there and play pickleball. So it's fun. It's fun seeing the kids get over there and play. But I have noticed some hypocrisy about pickleball from certain residents who complain, but then go and play pickleball and even have their dog on the court, which is prohibited. So you're either going to be for pickleball or against pickleball. Don't be against it and play and complain. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next up, Susan Kaplan.
Hello.
Hello.
Susan Kaplan. I live on Baskerville. We're 10 days out from the end of your pressure test, using guinea pigs as subjects, as Director DeMarco put it at the board meeting on November 9th. I think you meant the pickleball players, but former board director Niddickman reframed it and said the guinea pigs would be the neighbors around the park. That was oh so true. All 35 homes who live within 500 feet of your pressure test, some as close as 225 feet, have been put to the test. With Mr. Niddickman's advice, you finally commissioned a sound study, but placement of the mitigation blankets proved ineffective. The homes on Hedwig, 225 feet away, still hear it clearly, and park neighbors are absolutely miserable. And those of us 450 feet away find it a nuisance as well. Some of us lose sleep. Some of us have had to turn to medication and medical care. Directors DeMarco and Maynard were skeptical that the sound could possibly be that annoying, so planned a site visit to see if the homeowners were exaggerating. One home opened hospitality to you, and you too heard the nuisance sound. You added more mitigation material to the top of the existing mitigation material, but that hasn't worked either. Instead, the sound seems even louder, and emails upon emails and videos upon videos have been sent to you to demonstrate this. Mind you, even if the mitigation worked, there's still 3 sides of the court that are not mitigated. And those of us on Baskerville have been bothered in the quiet of evenings with the high-pitched pops of pickleball and the banter of the pickleball players. Moreover, tennis has been adversely impacted. Many of us are choosing to drive elsewhere and avoid playing next to pickleball players. Even the tennis instructor has moved his operation as far from pickleball as possible, but to no avail. The sound of pickleball is inescapable. Even if you continued to add mitigation material to the other sides of the pickleball court, you would not mitigate the sound from those pickleball players practicing and setting up shop on the walkway in front of the rec center. What drove this pressure test was a perceived overwhelming demand. That hasn't panned out. Even with marketing, more signage, reservations are far from are simply far a very relative few individuals. Excuse me. Most of the play is walk-ons, which offers no revenue to RCSD. I believe that the GM thought that $35,000 of revenue would come in from pickleball, but that's far from reality. Finally, do pickleball players actually want to come here? You've heard from pickleball players themselves, some who say they prefer the Seal Beach Tennis and Pickleball Center over Rossmoor Park. Obviously, that's not 100% universal, but it certainly is true among many of the pickleball community. And while some in the community pressed for riding their bikes, most pickleball players appear to be driving. Why not then drive the short distance to Seal Beach or other facilities within a mile or 2? How does this beautify our park? The appearance of mitigation blankets is really, really ugly. And worse yet, it poses safety concerns behind them. A neighbor on social media posted her observation of a pickleball player urinating on the pickleball court a week or 2 ago. One of our own residents, a real estate economist, has advised against pickleball in our small neighborhood park, concerned for a negative impact on home property values, with a trickle effect into the Rossmoor community at large. Lastly, we finally see there is no way to enforce rules. The RCSD has had 90 days to come up with a plan for how to do this and has been unable to do so. Any monitoring would require an increase in dedicated staff hours and the hiring of additional staff, resulting in increased cost to taxpayers and something no other sport requires. Please, please, vote no on extending pickleball either temporarily or permanently.
All right, next up, Robert Kaplan.
Rob Kaplan from Baskerville Road. I have to admit that I was wrong in what I thought was going to be happening with the pickleball trial. I really had no idea that the players would be urinating on the court under cover of the mitigation equipment. I really had no idea that under the cover of all the activity with mitigation and pickleball here, that people would now be playing soccer on court 4. I didn't expect that to be happening. I had no idea that very often pickleball players would be playing on the walkway or on the other courts rather than just the ones designated for pickleball. I thought they would be staying just in the pickleball courts. I had no idea that the noise on Baskerville would be what it was. I was expecting it probably was going to be terrible on Hedwig, but I had no idea what it was going to be like on Baskerville in the evening when many games were happening at pickleball and we go out to walk outside in our front yard. No idea. I had no idea that the RCSD would not be staffing Rossmoor Park all the time that pickleball was happening. I thought it was going to be fully staffed so that it could be enforced and regulated so that when a problem happened, a staff person would be right there instead of having to text people or call them and being told, well, why don't you call the sheriff? This is a waste of time for Orange County sheriffs to be coming to our park when this whole thing should not have been happening at all, and certainly when Rossmoor Community Services District has not staffed to address and take care of the problem as it is. Please listen to reason and put a stop to this. People are losing their mental health, they are losing their enjoyment of where we live, and they're losing the good opportunity to be tennis players on wonderful tennis courts in Rossmoor Park. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Sue Clark.
A bit shorter. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I would like to just kind of reiterate a little bit about the mission statement that I've read for our CSD regarding recreation. Because I think it's really pertinent to kind of the issues of the recreation in Rossmoor that is being provided. It says the district will endeavor to create a livable community and promote healthy lifestyles aimed at enhancing the quality of life through the use of recreational activities. With that, you're looking at enhancing the quality of life is the view I'd like you to take when looking at pickleball. I think we can all agree on another issue, such as the freeways, the traffic noise, the air pollution that has increased because of the changes of the freeway and how the negative impact has occurred in Rossmoor. And I don't think it's just on those residents that are close to the freeway, such as Martha Ann, but it extends on into the center of Rossmoor. There may be a few houses that aren't impacted by the noise, but you can even hear it out here in the parking lot of Rush Park. I can hear it at my home on Hedwig. So much that it can disturb sleep if windows are open because of the noise on the on-ramps of either loud, fast motorcycles, fast cars. And I don't think anyone would disagree that this hasn't caused harm to both our residents and to our property values. I kind of would like you to look at pickleball in the same way. Is it causing any harm to the residents? I know that not everyone is going to agree with changes on whether they like pickleball or don't like pickleball. I would like you to look at the issue of is it causing harm? And if it's causing harm, then your mission is probably to stop that harm from happening, is what I would hope. There's been many instances where I've heard people saying it's both physically, mentally, and emotionally harming them, that it is interfering with their quality of life in their home and their residence that they have invested in. There's been real estate I have seen emails from real estate people as well as different articles on pickleball and how it has a negative impact on the property values. Again, this is harm to our community. If you're looking at the complete picture, please look at whether or not this is harming our community and take the necessary action to protect us. I thank you for your time and hope that you will do that.
All right, next up, Lisa Keats.
Hi, good evening. I'm Lisa Keats. I live on Hedrick Road. I had the pleasure of having you visit my home when there were 12 pickleball players playing pickleball the evening of Wednesday, about 3 weeks ago, or maybe a month ago. I am affected by it. I do have anxiety from it, and I am taking medication because of it. We hear it very clearly in our house. And this is causing, and it makes me very sad, separation, friction. I'm losing friends over it. And I don't feel like it's fair. I'm not against pickleball, but unfortunately, I live in a house that is affected by the noise of pickleball. And there are great people playing pickleball, and I enjoy the game myself. And my husband has gone and played, and yes, there was an evening that Tony DeMarco and Rachel DeMarco stepped onto the court right after my husband and my 8-year-old left. And my husband did have the dog. And he left that evening and he said, I cannot complain and play. So I'm not going to play here anymore. I do get it now. I want to play, but this is not the right place. It is not fair on the community. It is not fair on the residents that live around this park. And I realize now that this does not belong here. I just feel like we can do this together and build a proper facility that works for everyone. And I'd love to play as well. I love the game. I've got 6 paddles at my house. I'm not against it. And all these people sitting here that want to play, they're all amazing people. This is just causing so much friction in this community, and it honestly makes me so sad. It really does. If we can just all work together and do this right. As I came here this evening, there were 2 adults playing, I sent you a video, on court 3, and there were 4 adults playing on court 2. So people are playing wherever they want to. Your signage, no one's looking at the signage, they're totally ignoring it, they're playing past 9 o'clock, they're playing on every court. On Friday evening, it was chaos. There were people on every single court playing pickleball on Friday evening, this past Friday evening. There's no one there to stop them. Thank you.
All right, next up, Michelle Fieldson.
Hi, Michelle Fieldson. I'd like to address first, from the very beginning, this has not been, it's been posed against pickleball, for pickleball. And I think the demand that the board thought was there was because we all have friends who play pickleball. We all have friends who love pickleball. We pushed to prove that there was the demand in Rossmoor, and it was never proven. But 3 things from the very beginning seem to be what is getting lost in this. Number 1, is pickleball a good location at a small residential park surrounded on all 4 sides by $1 million plus homes? Is it the right location? Not is pickleball fun. We all know it's fun. Secondly, Rossmoor Park, home to LA GSL softball, basketball, tennis, volleyball. Is that park at its capacity? We feel it is. We keep being questioned by the board. You live by a park. You have to expect noise, as if we are saying to this board, give us peace and quiet. We want no noise. We accept the noise. We have youth camp going 5 days a week. We accept that. That has never been addressed. Every venue has a capacity. Rossmoor Park is at that capacity. Third is the tennis community, a thriving tennis community for decades. Rarely, when you take away from one to give to another, does it end well. And rarely will it unify a group of people. What also has been dismissed is the unique noise of pickleball. We heard from Director Barkey, sound studies weren't done for softball, they weren't done for basketball, and they weren't because they weren't necessary. No community is putting in pickleball anywhere close to homes without a project plan, a site plan, and an acoustical study. And I want to quote from Bob Unitic, the consultant that was hired by this board to do a sound study when he was interviewed by a journalist. Quote, "You can't take pop, pop, pop for 12 hours a day, every day, and remain sane." He speaks of the explosive growth over the last few years and says, quote, "With that explosion came the lawsuits. Over the last several months, I just kept seeing them kind of pop up. And all these lawsuits, of course, were largely over pickleball being too noisy." He states, "Pickleball sound exists right in that most sensitive range. An interesting thing I learned along the way is that garbage truck backup beepers are right in the same pitch of pickleball. Why did they pick that sound for beepers? Because it's the most annoying frequency." This is what's being dismissed. You can't buy a sound measuring device from Staples, have an employee stand around the park and say it doesn't sound that loud. 55 days into the trial, it became obvious there wasn't a demand. So the conversation switched from a demand to community awareness. Then it became marketing to all, intentionally excluding the idea that reservations were for Rossmoor residents, welcoming walk-ins from all over the community, and it became a free-for-all. Word has spread rapidly that it is in fact a free-for-all at Rossmoor Park, that the RCSD has no ability to manage its park, that the best use for the $350,000 we spend annually per deputy is to divert a patrol car to police our tennis courts. This last Friday, when all hell broke loose at the tennis courts, takeover by pickleball, no one from the RCSD was anywhere to be found. There had never been a plan put in place on how to monitor this stress test, how to alleviate the stress for the neighbors in the community. We're told not to confront the pickleball players, and yet we have no recourse. Twice the police have had to be called out. It's just not right. And again, it goes back to, let's don't make this about pickleball isn't fun. We know it's fun. Rossmoor Park is not the place for it. Thank you.
I'm just going to say your first name, Dan. Dan. What's the last name? Oh, you can state it.
My last name?
Yeah.
Sanger.
Okay.
Is that the right guy?
Yeah, I think that's you.
Whether there's demand for pickleball or not isn't really the point I want to make. My point is that there aren't enough courts. And if you carve one out for pickleball, there aren't enough remaining courts for the residents. We've tried this before, removing another court. When the second instructor arrived, there were many, many times where I couldn't get a reservation, I couldn't walk on, there were too many people waiting because there were two instructors at the same time and only two courts remaining for the rest of the residents. If we carve out a court for pickleball, it's going to be the same dynamic. When there's one instructor teaching and one court for pickleball, there's still only two left for the residents. And there's just more tennis demand and the two courts aren't going to be adequate for that volume. It's also, I think, a little bit unfair that when you were trying to assess the demand for pickleball, that the sign outside of Rossmoor advertised pickleball in Rossmoor Park. I think it probably should have said, come play pickleball or tennis at Rossmoor Park. And then you would have had a more even distribution of the players of each sport and had probably a more accurate assessment of the demand of each. I also think that the other issue is that there are plenty of courts at El Dorado and at Seal, and there's a lot of pickleball courts already at Seal, where carving out more for pickleball would not compromise the availability of tennis courts. And as the person before me mentioned, the pickleball courts there are far away from the homes and the residences. I haven't been able to play after work and during peak times during the pickleball trial period. I've monitored it. I can play sometimes during my lunch hour, typically after work when the days are long. I make a mental note every time I drive home from work about 5:30. Today was a typical day. All the tennis courts were full. And so it's not that there is adequate supply of tennis courts, it's already full. And I can confirm, even though I don't live close to the courts, the noise really is annoying. And on a lighter note, when I did participate in the pickleball noise demo and I saw the acoustic pads, the first thing I thought of was Bellevue Mental Hospital. Those things are really ugly. Thank you.
Next up, Frank Manis.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. I live in Rossmoor. I played tennis here for decades, and I'm really upset by the conflict that I've seen in this community over this issue. It's supposed to be a recreation, a place for recreation, and instead it seems to be a place for contention. That's the opposite of recreation. I wanted to make a couple of observations. The first one is I was part of the test on May 24th. I went out and I played pickleball to kind of create, a situation where you would have 12 players on the court playing pretty well. And I don't claim to be good at pickleball. I like it. I've played it before, but I'm not as good at that as I am at tennis. But we were whacking away, and so I got a read on the noise. And what I wanted to point out was on 3 other occasions when I've been playing tennis or been near the park, I've heard pickleball players, and the noise they make is at least as much as we made that night. In fact, sometimes more, because they often will go off the court, or they'll be shouting that we didn't actually do. We didn't replicate that part of it. So that was my main point in terms of factual, or it's really subjective, but to my ear, it's just as loud or louder when the courts are full. And the second thing I wanted to say was pickleball, I think from the points that have been made, it's not a need, it's a want. People want to play pickleball in Rossmoor. Do they need to play pickleball in Rossmoor? No, it's a want. And someone said that earlier. I want to play there. So why shouldn't we just let everybody do what they want? Well, what people want has to be balanced or weighed by what people need. And I would say that the needs of the community outweigh the wants of a few people that want to play pickleball. If they, you could argue with that and say, well, no, I need to play pickleball. I'm sports addicted. Well, there are plenty of places to go. You don't need to play it at that particular spot. And I've never understood why that spot was chosen. It seems to me, and I've written this before, that it was kind of shoehorned in to the park, and the park wasn't designed to have pickleball in that way, in that location. So it just seems like the whole thing from the beginning, the whole premise of it, has been some people want to play there, and that's the whole argument. And that should not be an argument for community. It should be, what do we need? How do we balance the needs of the many? And hopefully also, satisfy as much recreational activities as we can. But I would say this particular recreational activity does not belong in the park. Thank you.
All right, next up, Janice Spanis.
I'm Janice Manis, as announced, and I live over on Kempton Drive. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. The sound of pickleball play is disturbing the peace of neighbors and others around and close to Rossmoor Park. On Wednesday, May 24th, from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., I was present at Lisa and Rob Keats' home as President DeMarco, Vice President Maynard, and General Manager Mendoza also visited their home to observe pickleball noise. The Keats home faces Rossmoor Park's tennis and pickleball courts. While others were talking, I purposely walked around the Keats backyard from the east side to the middle, then to the west side, pausing and listening for several minutes. President DeMarco also listened to the sounds from these locations. I did not hear any tennis sounds. The pickleball popping sounds were audible throughout the backyard, but were especially loud on the west side of the yard, where the Keats outdoor seating and dining areas are located. The percussive pickleball sounds were also audible inside and in front of their home. The Keats are basically surrounded by the sounds of pickleball. This is not right or fair. The next evening, I sat in my own backyard and took in the neighborhood sounds as I relaxed. I imagined adding the pickleball sounds I experienced the night before and knew such popping sounds would be intolerable for me, just as they are for the Keats and other residents every single day and night. I asked the board to validate the Keats point of view and other neighbors around Rossmoor Park. Sit in your own backyards and imagine the constant intrusive pickleball noise as you try to relax with your families and friends. You too would not want this noise at your home where there is no escape from it. Lastly, why are you adding pickleball courts at Rossmoor Park at all? There's never been a credible survey conducted of Rossmoor resident interest. Plus, a pickleball solution already exists nearby. The Seal Beach Tennis and Pickleball Center is a mere mile away on Lamson with 16 dedicated, state-of-the-art, fully lit pickleball courts in an active pickleball community. And the center does not disturb the peace of its residents. I urge you to visit the center. And when you do, you will realize adding pickleball courts at Rossmoor Park simply cannot offer or compete with the court quality or amenities already in place at the Seal Beach Tennis and Pickleball Center. Considering resident reports of noise, court misuse, public elimination, and the contentious environment now created by the addition of pickleball play at Rossmoor Park, the only logical decision for this board is to vote no to pickleball when the pickleball trial concludes. Preserve the peace in Rossmoor for all residents. After all, the needs of the many outweighs the needs of the few.
Enos O. Did I pronounce that right?
No, that's
Oh,
all right.
sorry.
Eunice O.
Eunice.
I am on Wallingsford. Good evening. I just wanted to come and just share my experience. I've been here, we moved here right before the pandemic, and this has been such a wonderful place of community. You know, my kids riding their bikes to their friends' homes, and we have used the pickleball courts quite a bit. And I do understand both sides of the story. I get it. Lisa, like, I would not want a friend of mine to be taking medication. That's not what I want. But for me and my family, something that it has done is my kids are a little bit older now. They don't go to the park anymore. The pickleball has brought experiences for my family to come together, play pickleball with other members of the community. You know, we'll be able to text friends, hey, ride your bikes over, and we will play a game with them and other people who just come in. So I will, just speaking from my experience, it has been wonderful just bringing community together. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Ralph Artebedian.
Hello, board members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I don't want to repeat everything you've heard. I think a lot of serious concerns were raised. I want to just address a couple observations I've made. First, on a personal note, I may be closer to the pickleball courts than any resident or homeowner, and I have a direct line of sight from my property to that court, to the courts. And when the trial was just beginning, I asked the general manager what the plan was for the mitigation and the blankets, and he said that they were going to put up blankets. The blankets were put up in such a way that I had a direct line of sight with no mitigation to my home. And as I said, I'm already the closest person to the courts. So I kind of feel that I really don't know what it would be like if you did put blankets up. One of your 2 acoustic consultants advised that all 4 sides of the courts for pickleball should be mitigated with acoustic blankets. I did raise that concern, and I don't think that, well, it was not, we didn't get any additional blankets for the line of sight to my home. I don't know if you go forward with this, whether you have any other plan. We never saw an acoustic plan put forth by a consultant that gave you advice on specifically the best way to mitigate the noise. It was sort of ad hoc. The first consultant didn't really give you a plan. The second consultant said, well, you probably need all 4 sides. It was not specific, but so I'm concerned about how we're going about this. Second, I just want to make one observation. Since the trial has begun, I think a number of people have raised concerns about people breaking park rules, playing pickleball where they shouldn't, having dogs on the courts when apparently your rules don't allow that, and various other misbehaviors. And you know, when I left my home today, there were 24 vehicles parked. Many of them were pickleball players. That's to be expected, right? That's why you put it out there. And I notice a lot of people are hanging out after their games. They'll be on the sidewalk socializing and talking, as you would think people should. And collectively, all that, kind of the talking and hanging out, the disorder on the courts, it's kind of changing the milieu of my neighborhood, which was always fundamentally suburban, quiet, orderly. It's a little bit more urban-like now. And I don't know if that's an intended consequence or just collateral damage, but you're changing the character, the essential character of the neighborhood with this, because people are going to hang out, they're going to talk after they're in front of my house, and you know, I'm not going to complain about somebody talking in front of my house. It's a public street and it's not bothering me, honestly. But I think what will bother me is this sense that you're going to change this neighborhood in a way that I never wanted. I didn't move here to be part of an urban type neighborhood. I could have lived somewhere in LA, closer to where I worked for decades. But I chose Rossmoor because I like the leafy, quiet milieu that we have, and I think you're putting that at risk to change that. And I just want you to think about the costs of doing that. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the cards. Anyone else? All right. Carolyn, can you go over the emails we received?
Just a synopsis, if that's okay with you. There were quite a few that came through, and since the trial started, we've received over 154 just emails. That doesn't count all the texts, phone calls, and staff conversations that have taken place with residents and players on the courts. All said, it looks that about 50 households are being represented in that 154 email number, and is split pretty much down the middle as far as pros and cons for pickleball.
Yep. Thank you. All right. If there's no more public forum, I'm going to close the public forum and move on to reports of the board. Mr. Mendoza, D1, timeline for new website.
I'm going to go ahead and give you a little update on the website, what's
Okay.
going on. Our social media intern, Shelby, we've got her working primarily on the website now, and we're taking most of the social media in-house so she can focus primarily on the website and get it done. She's given us a timeline. She's about halfway through, she's modifying the homepage and getting all of the images and graphics moved from one website to the new website and creating the backbone. She should have critiques ready for Joe and I to look at on the 19th, but she's hit a little hiccup. She's asking for some technical support, so she probably will have the website finished closer to the second week in July, at which point we can probably start working on setting up an ad hoc meeting like we discussed.
Great. Yep. Sounds good.
When do we get to meet Shelby? I know she's a college student. That might be a little difficult, but it'd be nice to meet her.
The most difficult part is that Shelby doesn't have a vehicle, and she is in LA most of the time, but we'll work on getting
That
her
would
here
make
to meet
it
the
pretty
board.
hard.
And, you know, Carolyn, when we do have that first initial ad hoc, it can all be on over Zoom.
Okay.
Right. Since it's all,
Absolutely.
yeah, since we'll just have that meeting and,
It's a great idea.
but I know Joe Shade and I would love to see where, we can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fantastic. Okay. Thank you, Carolyn. Moving on to D2, monthly traffic safety update.
President DeMarco, members of the board, as you know, we've been working pretty diligently with Orange County Traffic Engineer Wei Zhu, and we've outlined some of our concerns regarding the Montecito-Bradbury corridor and the traffic and the parking issues that go along with that area, and because of the shops at Rossmoor and the lack of availability to their parking lot. So I want to, point out that Orange County is listening. We're going to see how much they're listening on July 6th. They have hired a consultant and are paying for it with Orange County Public Works dollars. And she's telling us the consultant has come to a conclusion of their study, and they're going to show us some measurements and give us some examples of methods that they're going to recommend on how to mitigate some of the issues there. And that'll be on July 6th, and it'll be here, 7 p.m. at Rossmoor Park. And we'll have our traffic committee meeting. Okay? We will publicize. We let our committee know, and we're looking forward to the presentation.
Joe, can you repeat where that meeting will be?
I'm sorry, it'll be here at Rush Park.
Okay, just wanted to
7
be clear.
o'clock.
And so, Joe, go into that a little more, because that is, so it's, the consultant's going to be here, and there's going to be a report given to the traffic committee.
And from that report, there might be further study, or we'll bring it to the board with some recommendations.
Okay. That good with the board?
Really good.
I know I've talked about before, but that traffic speed over by the library is still out and has been out since before the election. 9 months it's been out. I know every time I bring it up and you say, hey, they're waiting for parts, but
Well, I've reported
that's a
it.
very long supply
Well,
chain.
and the fact that it's brand new.
I know, but no, but it's been 9 months since it's worked.
Yeah,
I'll get on
Did someone maybe cross
I
the
think
street,
it's
didn't
been
like it,
on-
and they unplugged it?
Which one, coming in or?
The one coming in off of Montecito or
Oh,
St. Cloud,
yeah.
the
St.
one
Cloud.
right by the,
Okay, the other one
the
was-
library.
The other one is intermittent too, but it's.
But this one's been
usually
out.
on. Yeah.
And it's right by the farmer's market
They
bank.
both were vandalized. And
Okay.
They fixed the one on Montecito, and I don't know what's going on. I would triple check. I've checked, double, I've done this a couple of times, but I'll check.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joe. Wow, we're already on the consent calendar. Okay, so consent calendar E1, I know that Director Searles was not here last month, so I'm gonna, I need a motion to cut this up? Right? I gotta break them apart. Okay, so, I need a motion to, separate, 1A from 2.
So motioned.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Of which one? Oh, of that,
Oh,
of
just
breaking?
breaking them
Okay.
up? Aye, okay.
Procedure.
All right.
Aye.
All right, so let's, the consent calendar 1A, regular RCSD board meeting, May 9th. Do I have a motion to approve?
So motioned.
Second?
Second, okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstaining.
Okay, thank you. And now let's discuss E2, April 2023 Revenue and Expense Report. A motion to approve or discuss.
So motioned.
Second.
I'm not there yet, hold on. I'm not sure if I'm...
I guess I would like, Mr. Mendoza, if there's any items in the, whatever, monthly that you want to bring up, I guess, the significant variance, anything you wish to discuss?
Anything out of the ordinary, Joe, in our expenses?
No, things are balancing out, things are catching up. There are some deviations, but it's kind of a balancing act with tennis and the pickleball situation where we lost a pro, so that we lost some income there. We're down in our reservations a little because of the weather, but this last couple of months I've been watching, and our reservations are picking up quite a bit. So it's going to be close, or we're going to be down a few $1,000s, but in that area, we are catching up. I have Accountant Michael Matsumoto here who might want to chime in, but besides that, that's the one area that I think you need to be aware of. The other area, and that'll be in the budget also, is we did put our request in for reimbursement to Prop 68. We're waiting for a $72,000 check. We were approved after a lengthy back and forth with paperwork and with receipts and with pictures and, the whole, if you ever applied for a grant, they're pretty stringent on what they require. So we finally dotted all the I's and crossed the T's, and we're approved, and they were telling us maybe 7 to 9 weeks that we have to wait for a check. The state is very, very backed up, and they have one person running all these grants and processing them and sending it on to the state for approval. So we're happy that we're there. The second part of that is we are getting ready to go out to bid to redo the carpet in here. And, we're taking the before and after pictures and getting all the bid specs and in preparation to go out to bid. So the way this works is we get a couple vendors to come in, measure, make sure we're getting the right measurements, making sure we're getting the right specifications of the carpet we want and the twill and everything else. That's when we go out to bid. So we're there right now. So we're prepping for that, and we'll put ads in the newspaper, and we'll go out to, I have a list of about 15 vendors we will hit, and we will set some deadlines, and they'll bring their bid sheets in if they want to bid, and then we will be coming back to our committee and then the board with a recommendation on.
And part of that is also sound mitigation because of all the echo and the lack of sound?
Not sound yet, no. I have a sound mitigation pro sound over here in Los Alamitos who's coming in and going to give us some recommendations, yes.
Well, as I mentioned, where I'm coming from is it's hard for me to vote on hardwood flooring when this auditorium sounds as poorly as it does. To me, they're part of the same. Just take it for what it is.
Okay.
On that note, just a question on the bidding that we're doing. Are we doing like a standard 3 bids that?
Yes.
We do, and then we do advertise. I heard you say newspaper. Do we do in the newsletter as well, or?
We do it all social media, and we will also, like I said, we have a list of about 15 vendors, local vendors that we send to.
Very good. And-
The standard procedure. Yes.
Right, I just wanted to make sure.
And just to clarify.
Being open.
I know that Director Maynard has mentioned that a couple times, but I need to get clarification on what the board wants, you know, because we are budgeted for the carpeting. If we don't want to do the hardwood, that's fine, but we're budgeted to move forward with the carpeting within the grant. There's no specification for sound mitigation. So I can do, as I said, I was going to do that on the side and give you a kind of an additive alternate, so you can kind of say, okay, well, yeah, that's going to cost 10 grand. Yeah, we can absorb that within our budget, or when that time comes.
If I may, maybe I opened this up by asking about budget deviations. Maybe
Now
we
we're
could
talking
have
about
this come
consent.
back in the general manager's report,
Yeah.
or
Good
it should be
idea.
part of our
Budget.
Parks and Facilities
Well, we have
meeting,
we
which
do
we'll
have an
have.
open- We do have an open hearing tonight on the budget, right?
Yes.
Even though
Yeah.
everyone left.
So-
Okay.
But I'm just saying for keeping it in order.
Yeah, and then you mean keeping it within the consent calendar?
Yeah, I know,
Oh,
I
yeah.
took it out of consent and made it worse,
It's
but,
okay.
but
That's
nonetheless,
all
I'm trying to rectify my mistake already.
No, everything's good. All right, so, Director Searles?
I would move this.
Second.
Second.
Okay, second?
Yes.
All right, to approve E2, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. All right. So now we move to F1, public hearing, fiscal year 2023-24, proposed final budget for the Rossmoor Community Services District. Mr. Mendoza.
Yes. President Markins, members of the board, this is our first reading of the proposed final budget. We had a preliminary review last month, and so I'm asking you to open the public hearing, which you've had, receive the proposed final budget, take public testimony, close the public hearing, deliberate, and approve the fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget. What we've done in accordance with our policy number 3020 is we've noticed this in a public hearing in the newspaper, and we've already prepared another one to go out probably tomorrow or first thing next week in anticipation of the final approved budget in July. So that's following our process and our procedures. We have before you a final budget. I have Mr. Michael Matsumoto, who helped me prepare this. He's here to answer any questions along with myself. And we're proud that we are within budget, and we have a good reserve. And we're looking forward to some revenue again from Prop 68 that will enhance our reserves. And we'll be happy to answer any questions. Workers' compensation, as you remember, I'm sorry to retract a little bit. It's ongoing. We are approved by CJPIA to move forward on July 1st. Michael might want to help me here because I didn't really read it. It came in late today, but we did get a reimbursement because we had asked for an audit from state fund, and I believe today Michael might want to give me some figures here, but they did give us some money back, but we're still waiting to find out what our penalty is by the end of the year. Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah,
They gave us
Michael.
credit. They
Yeah,
gave us
Michael,
credit.
you can start there. Why don't you give the board an update on workers' comp, because so there's now this reimbursable and then the penalty that we were speculating the amount, but why don't you start there?
Okay, just so you know, I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can just tell you we've gotten bits and pieces. They significantly increased the rates for this fiscal year, but their fiscal year was like, I think it's November to November.
Right.
And
Of course it is.
they raised the rates substantially, well after the budget had been adopted, and I think it was like a it was a substantial increase. I know the general manager reached out to them, asking them why and see if they could reconsider. They said no, and got a quote from CJPIA to switch to their insurance at about 20% of what the state fund is currently charging. A $12,000 quote, and the state fund is charging over $4,000 per month. we found out the early termination penalty. It's a really elaborate calculation, and I'm not saying that I'm certain, but the way I calculated it, it looked like you were going to have about a $12,300 penalty in addition to the $4,000 every month from a bill from state fund. So once you finally terminated June 30th, you would have the bill. I believe they were going to calculate it and pay and bill the district in August. Timing was a little sketchy, but that was my estimate as to when the calculation would come through. Then we got the June bill dated June 5th, and they've recalculated the rates and given reductions, and so it's still considerably higher than what you were paying and what you will be paying with CGAPIA, but the latest bill came in with a $12,700 credit.
Okay, so wait a minute, wait. So right now, state fund's charging us $4,000 a month, roughly.
Almost five, let's say 4,500.
Almost 5,000, and this is with this substantial increase this last year that what we were not warned about, so we could not budget it. And where we used to be paying with state fund about
20,000.
20,000 a year. Okay, so now it's close to 5,000 a month. So this last bill in June, they gave us a $12,000 credit because we asked for them to audit several months ago, right?
Maybe 6 months ago,
Okay.
but yes.
Okay.
And they said no, but the bill came in for June, and it's got a credit balance of the $12,700.
Okay.
And the detail shows adjustments of the rates.
So just because you're the math guy, kind of do the math in your head, because I know what the report said, that we were going to be charged $12,000, and even though we're paying that $12,000, it's far less than what we were going to be paying for the remainder of the year. But with the $12,000 credit, do a little, based on the report, or based on the budget or the preamble to the budget, the thing that I read about, you know, the workers' comp, how's that change now the bottom line for this year for workman's comp?
It's going to be a lot less if everything holds the way it looks right now.
The way you're predicting, based on what you're reading.
Right. The way it looks right now, we won't have a June bill to pay, which I had estimated you were going to have another $4,600 bill for June. That's not going to happen. You've got the $12,000 credit. If they then bill you for the early termination for $12,300, and you've got a credit of $12,700, you might not have to pay anything extra. So that is going to be about $20,000 better than I thought you were going to end. And next year, we budgeted $15,000. It's the $12,000 for CGAPIA, and I wasn't sure if there might not be a few thousand in miscellaneous costs and actuary, or someone charges a fee for something else. But it could be only $12,000, but the proposed budget has the $15,000 for next year for the workers' comp.
For this year, what are you predicting with this new credit? What are you predicting the overage is going to be for our current fiscal for workers' comp? You can guess, but is it 5, 10, something like that, or is it 20? What are you predicting?
My gut says you're probably going to be $20,000 over, and I thought we were going to be even higher than that when, yes, the budget looked like you were going to be $40,000 over. And so if you look at the preliminary or the proposed budget, looks like you're going to be $40,000 over for this fiscal year. With a $20,000 savings that looked like going to happen, looks like you're only going to be $20,000 over budget. And so you would coast in at about $40,000 for the year, and prior years have been 20, and next year would be 12.
Any questions on workman's comp before he goes on?
No, the net thing is it's more favorable than we thought.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We got some accommodations from and some credits.
Yep.
They've actually invoiced it as attached to the previous rate hike.
Yes.
So, no, I get it.
Yep, I get it.
But the other thing I'm confirming is our fiscal year ends this month.
Yes, June 30th.
Just wanted, okay.
No bill in June. That's
Right,
been-
they billed us June 5th, and it's got a credit balance. They did not send the money to us, though, so
Right,
it's a
they're just gonna
credit
credit.
balance.
Good luck.
Take it off
Good
the
luck
bill.
collecting.
Well, but it should be an ongoing credit.
Okay.
So, I mean, that was just like, I mean, we asked for an audit and we found $12,000. And ironically, that's what our fee was gonna cost, our penalty fee. So it
Yeah.
kind of just, I mean,
The good news keeps pouring in.
right. It's a good thing.
All right, so any, why don't you, I mean, since, I mean, again, this is our public hearing for our budget, and only one person is out in the audience, and I don't think she has any questions, but, any questions? Okay, so why don't you just go over,
Close the public forum.
oh, okay. Did I have the public forum open? No, I haven't
Oh,
even
okay.
opened the public forum, and, because, that's my public forum opening. It's the one person sitting in, if she has any questions, and she doesn't, so
Okay.
I'll open public and I'll close public. Michael, can you just kind of go over again, like you did last month, just reiterate some of the highlights of our budget that perhaps the board needs to be either reminded and the public should know?
Yes, there are a few changes in the budget for next year. One would be workers' comp. We just talked about that, traditionally 20,000. Looked like this year was going to be 60, but now it looks like it may end up only being 40. I'm not going to say that I'm certain it's only going to be 40. It's always possible the state will change their mind, but that's kind of what it looks like now. And then next year with CJPIA, it will be going down to, we budgeted 15,000, but that's 12,000 plus 3,000. There may be some other fees that come along. In prior years, including 22-23, we budgeted several items such as janitorial supplies to the various parks. But we don't track the expenses that way. What happens is we'll get a bill for toilet paper and paper towels, and we just allocated percentages to those parks. So we don't really know if those are the true expenses. So we discussed this with the budget committee and decided put them all in administration, and we're not tracking the toilet paper. So when someone takes toilet paper out to Rossmoor Park, no one's going to say 5 rolls, because the time to track it is not worth it. And so we've moved them. If you look at the budget for the various parks, you'll see that vehicle maintenance, ground maintenance, and janitorial supplies are next year going to 0 in the various other departments, and will all only exist in Division 510, administration. And so it looks like the budget goes up in 510, but you'll see a corresponding reduction in the other departments. And the salaries include a 3% pay increase, and generally other costs, we've assumed a 5% increase.
And Mike, may I ask, one of the items I noticed was when looking at the Rossmoor Park, the water budget. So at the beginning of 22-23, we had that at 35,000. We amended it to 60,000, and our proposed is 63,000. What is the difference between, what was thought in 2022 to now looking at 23-24, that we're now keeping the same number of, $60,000+? I mean, how wrong were we in 22 that now we're assuming it's even going to be higher in 23?
Well, we assumed a 5% increase, so with a $60,000 budget,
amended budget for this year, we went up to 63,000. The reason for the increase is we're looking at the actual water bills and how they were coming in, and they weren't really lining up. The budget didn't exactly line up with where the charges were coming in. And so we did have to, I believe some came down, but most went up on the water charges. And I don't know what the water costs are going to be. This was a really good year. Aquifer's doing well. I don't know that the water replenishment fees are going to be going up, but I don't know that they aren't. We just put in a 5% increase.
What is our anticipated revenue for next year?
Looks like 2,152,700. And you'll notice that on
Page 32.
a lot of the other revenues do not have any increase. The property tax have been increasing every year when you account for the fact that the bonds were paid off. You had bonds that were paid off back in 1920, but your property taxes have been increasing every year and are again this year. And so we added, I believe, 3.5% to next year. But we didn't adjust any of the other revenues. The grants are based on the Prop 68 grant. And the county street sweeping is based on the contract that has a cap of $80,000.
What's our reserve at? And again, I'm just asking you to put it in record on the camera.
I
So
don't have it off the top of my head, but it's right around $1.5 million. It's like $1.5 million
That's good enough.
and change.
All right, thank you.
Which is what, about 70%?
Yeah,
Yes, 70 some odd.
we're at 70% reserves.
Yes.
Michael, will you explain how we calculate our reserves based on expenditures, right?
Yes, to calculate the percentage reserve, it's the $1.5 million, let's say $1.515 or $520, divided by next year's proposed expenditures of $2,090,000. And it worked out to, because if you use 2 million even, it would be like, hey, you got 75%. Well, it turned out to be like 72% when you, like 2.1 million. But pretty healthy reserves.
Yeah, we've worked hard for that.
So I think we've already asked this question, but are there any other major changes to this budget being presented from our last meeting?
There was, in the staff report, I don't remember what came up. There was a...
Well, there's
the
workers' comp,
election.
the election expenses.
I remember the election
Okay.
expenses
And
from
there-
last meeting.
There's one that I've been working on that I need to bring to your attention. I don't know the results yet. We have the, what SCA stands for, the Southern, whatever, the Street Sweeping Corporation of America. They're gobbling up the United States, and they're growing so fast, they can't keep up with their billing process or staffing, and not on the streets, because the street sweeping is going pretty decent, in my opinion. It's their administration. And they just bought some other large street sweeping company. But all year, they've been billing us, trying to bill us for like another $1,500 a month. And we've been rejecting it, sending it back with what's in our contract.
Mhm.
So we send a check back and we mark up the invoice and with a letter and send back and we, because you can't get anybody on the phone, they're just, you know. So I know, we're up in November, December, January, I think. I know they're gonna up our rates. I've been on the phone with the county because the county uses them for all the unincorporated areas too, and they're running into the same issue. And they anticipate, yes, they're gonna come after us with a big dollar figure and an increase. So today, Carolyn did a letter for me requesting a $72,000 reimbursement for this year's 12-month period to the county. And that was through Sweeping Corp of America, and before them it was, I forget the name of the company they bought out. So we're going to get that money. We're sending our invoices, we have all our paperwork lined up, and we send a letter off. But I was on the phone today with the county saying, okay, now what if the company comes back at us like they're going to come back at you and increases their fees? Will the county up our reimbursement? And I got positive feedback. Their comment was, yeah, just put in a request to have additional funds, and I'll run that through the board, and we should be okay.
And I can tell you historically, that's the way it's been.
So I was kind of questioning that because we already went up another 20 when we went to this two sides of the street. So I was hoping that wasn't going to be an issue, but apparently it won't be. Let's just hope.
And with Dixon, we didn't get many increases over the years.
But when we did, it was a
Yeah.
pass-through. Whatever
Yeah.
the bill was, county then would reimburse us.
So we're going to hit mid-year, and we'll bring back the amount to you mid-year. We don't know what it is, but
We're paying the contractual, you're sending a check in, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's just, or it's less than what the invoice is.
Less what the invoice is.
Yeah, and then you just, okay.
Okay.
I feel weird about this because I am on the budget committee, but I do not remember the driver behind our interest on investments, which is phenomenal. You
Interest
budgeted
rates.
for $3,000, then you did an estimate to close of $20,000, and we think it's going to be $30,000. That's all awesome, but I don't recall talking about that or what we can attribute that to.
That's the rising interest rates. You know.
Okay.
Yeah. Interest rates a year and a half ago were less
And the
than
investments that we're
0.5%.
doing are clocking past,
Higher
0.6% or whatever it was for the last few years.
Yes.
That's simply interest rate on safe investments.
Yes.
And
the
liquid.
sole investment that you have is the local agency investment fund run by the state, and they just hit 3% within the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But they were
less than one.
under 0.5%.
Yeah, I was
you
ready to
know.
say, this is like a 300%
And so
increase. Okay.
we're looking at it, and the quarterly interest payment came in excess of your annual budget.
Mhm.
And you get them in September and then December, and it was like, well, we've already far exceeded the budget. That's why we did the budget increase.
Okay.
Thanks.
That concludes our report.
Okay.
What we're asking you to do is approve this first reading. We'll come back next month with a second reading and a resolution, and that'll do the proposed final budget.
I have a question to Tarquin. Tarquin, we have a policy of having this first public forum, and this is technically our second reading. And then next month, ironically, after the fiscal starts, we then have another public meeting. Is that by law, or is that just by our policy? Do we have any, I mean, because the more I think about it, it would be, wow, I wish we started this a month earlier.
Bylaws.
So we approved it now. So starting on July 1st, we actually have a operating budget to sync in with the calendars.
Director Maynard, I understand your question. It is enshrined in the Community Services District law.
Oh, it is in law?
Yes. You
Okay,
have to
that's
have
fine.
two separately noticed public hearings. And the board policy accurately reflects what's in the Community Services District law.
Okay.
Good question.
So here's my recommendation, Tony, you and I are on that committee. Next time we have a meeting, I think we need to revisit the calendar and see if we can link up an operating budget that's passed So it actually starts with our fiscal instead of playing catch-up. I remember one year.
We did it right, or we had enough.
No, we actually didn't even, because there was
Oh,
issues, we
yes.
didn't even approve a budget
Till
until
August.
August.
Yes, I
So
remember.
technically, we were,
I think it was September.
I remember one year, and this was like.
It might have been.
Like 2014 or some weird year, so I don't want that to happen again. But I thought it was by law. When you and I were talking, I said, I think it's law, and you're going, it's not law in cities.
Yeah.
So, okay, I now understand.
Service
And
district
you and
law.
I can bring that up
Yep.
at our next meeting if we want to revise the calendar and
Yeah, and just
start the
push it up.
process just
Yep.
1 month earlier.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's all I have.
We've been pushing towards that, we're easing up to that, but the policy says on or before September 1st of each year.
We can change
So
the
we
policy.
need to move, I agree, July 1st, we should be.
And you've brought this up before, Joe,
Yeah,
so.
sure.
No.
We're getting close.
Yeah, it should be more like, what, August? Or,
July,
No, we're not changing fiscal, we're
No,
changing
no.
the calendar to
but you're
adopt the
saying,
budget
what's the
center.
September?
that's, we have to have a final approved budget.
Oh, yes, yes. You're talking about when we begin this, to where we don't even get close to September.
Yeah.
On that law code, Michael, is there, what's your, is it every 3 years or 6 years? What's the limit on having Michael with us?
I don't think we have an accountant.
No.
What? I
No?
don't understand the question.
No,
Like,
there's no
audit law?
there's an audit. That's totally different than Michael.
Yeah.
Michael's our
Oh.
accountant.
Yeah, he's just our accountant.
You're thinking of Rams, who does our audit.
Yeah.
And they'll be coming up, we're going out to bid for them in September.
Are you on the audit committee? I forget.
So, Director Shade, we used to have an in-house accountant, so now we have a outside.
Outhouse.
Outhouse, no, now we have
Don't
an
call him an outhouse.
outside accountant, and
No
that's
outhouse.
Michael. So, yeah. he-
Okay.
And his contract comes up every, I don't know,
However many.
2 years.
I got a 2-year contract.
Okay, great.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, do we vote to accept this or approve this?
Or any questions?
Or
Roll call, roll call.
roll call? Any more question?
No.
And all the roll call is, we're accepting and we're agreeing, we're going to vote on it next month.
Right.
Okay,
Finalizing.
All right. Since you have that down, why don't I'll wait for your motion.
okay. I'm making a motion to accept this budget and to keep on schedule for a public hearing next month with the intention of voting to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call vote. Director Searles?
Aye.
Director Maynard?
Here, I'm
Director
sorry,
Shea.
aye.
Director Shade?
Aye.
President DeMarco?
Aye. Okay, passes 4-0. Okay. Moving on, no resolutions, no ordinances. H1, discussion and possible action, Church of Christ, extended hours, facility request for use of Rush Park Auditorium and kitchen. Mr. Mendoza.
President Barker, members of the board, this is an annual request from the Church of Christ to extend a reservation past the approved number of hours that we have in our policy. I believe it's extended a couple hours past the I think 8 hours we approved, we have in our policy. So the church would like us to approve having Thanksgiving Day, Thursday, November 23rd, from 8 to 10 p.m., and Friday, November 24th, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. There'll be approximately 300 people. We do have an attendant that will be overseeing that program, and we recommend that they be approved. They have a good record with us, and they take care of the facility, and it's a good program.
They've been doing this for years. How many years have they been doing this?
I don't know, it's a long time, since I've been here, yeah.
I just know for those who don't have family and what they do to gather with their congregation, those who don't have family come here. I'm all for this.
And no, and everything good with you?
Yes.
Joe, your recommendation is to approve, so, any discussion? I need a motion?
Make a motion to approve?
Okay,
Second.
all right, all those in favor of H1?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0, all right. Wow, we're at general manager item.
President Mark and members of the board, I will briefly go over some of the highlights we have coming up. One is, Chris is in the audience back there. He coordinated the upcoming Movies in the Park, Puss in Boots on June 16th, and Lightyear on July 14th. Upcoming Shakespeare in the Park is July 15th and 16th, Hamlet and 12th Night. Prop 68 capital projects update, I gave that, I already reported that to you, but we're waiting for our reimbursement, and I'm working on the carpet project and also the canopy at Rossmoor Park. We did have a very successful Rossmoor bulky item and CR&R pickup on May 20th. We had a huge turnout, and we also gave out mulch on behalf of CR&R to our residents, and it's a very successful program. We had an evaluation meeting last week with CR&R staff. We have brought in a lunch and met with them, and we're polishing it up, making it even, it's going to be even better and faster, but people enjoy it, and it's a good service. Family Festival, you all know that we just had a very, very good one with RHA, LAUSD, and then our festival at the end to celebrate the parade. And it was a good day. We're looking up to gear up for the next one on July 8th. We're securing courts for the floor. The 90
Okay, Mr. Mendoza, could I interrupt
Yes,
while
sir.
you're with the family festivals? What were the impressions of, I know there was a beer garden for the first time, overall, traffic, sales,
Sales are down in the beer garden. We're meeting with Ted, I believe, next week, and he said that they didn't do as well as he thought they would. I think they're going to give it another go. We didn't have any issues. We're going to look at moving it into a better spot where it's more visible, and we'll see how that works out. I don't know if this is the venue that's going to bring them enough revenue to continue to come back.
Okay. If I could offer one comment or observation from it, was there was a crazy hypocrisy going on that we had an e-bike seller on the middle of the park, and at one moment I saw him riding the e-bike over to his van and thinking, how can this message work more poorly than this right here? So I understand that clearly they're able to be sold in the community, but seeing someone ride it across the park when it was really a busy park, right? This was the day where all the kids are on the park, and it's closer to the bounce house area than most of the other tents, and there he goes. And I wasn't going to confront him because I know that's an arrangement with he and Elite and us, but it's something to know in advance that was really
Probably not good optics.
That was a bad moment for me. But I know we can talk about it more, but it was a great event. It was really all day long. One of the beautiful parts of living on Mainway is how many people walked by and just said, oh, that was the best festival in a long time. They had a great day. So anyway, thank you, Joe. But yeah, I would like to address the e-bike thing and then clearly just, monitoring the beer garden and whether that's a success, or if it's not going to be, then we take away that stress and just get rid of it. And
The vendors need to keep the rules just like the citizens. I'll tell you that the beer garden itself, when they presented it on the footprint or the plan where you saw it, it was a lot smaller. On paper, it looked like, oh, wow, this thing's huge. Then you get there and go, oh, it's not that bad. I literally thought it was a lot of space on paper, but then when you got there, it seemed manageable and did not seem...
like a cart?
Well, no, it had the fence around it, but it wasn't like, hey, off in the corner, like they treat smokers. I mean, at least people, if they wanted to drink, they're still involved with the event. And I would say that we were lucky because up until that, there was no sunshine. We had great sunshine for the
First day that the sun came out.
the sun came out not only for the parade, but it also came out, and I actually got sunburned. It was all red when I got home. A great event. I was in my convertible, the one that normally the president would be in, but thanks for letting me step in. I had fun. It was a good time. It's a good time.
Okay, moving forward. Everybody knows this, but we're talking about our 90-day pickleball trial. It ends June 23rd. We have a scheduled Parks and Facility Committee meeting on June 27th to evaluate it, and we'll be coming back to the board on July 11th with recommendations. I want to give a shout out to the Ludwigs. Mr. and Mrs. Ludwig put on a swim safety program for us this past Saturday, and we're always looking for people who have passion and some expertise in areas that they feel strong about. And this story is kind of heartfelt, that the Ludwigs almost lost a daughter to a drowning, and she's there at this event. The father was able to revive her, and paramedics and whole 9 yards, and she came out of it fine. But they have a passion for this, and so we buddied up with them, and we provided the facility. They organized all the program, and we had about 30, 40 people in here that were educated and given tips on how to be pool safe. And we had paramedics, the fire, and it was a great event. It only lasted about an hour and a half. Kids had pizza, and it was just a nice day. So I'll be bringing them here to you in July with a proclamation, telling them thank you, and we're setting a date for next year. So they live right down the street. I don't know if you know the Ludwigs. They're the bus family with that blue bus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they have a craft bus that they bring out once in a while for us. Great family, and so I want to give them a shout out. And then the trunk project. You guys know that the sewer trunk project along Seal Beach and Los Al Boulevard has been going on. We're going to see a little more impact coming up in June, starting June 26th. They're going to move from St. Cloud all the way to the Triangle, okay? And they're going to be working on a couple of
How many lanes?
probably 2 lanes. But it's
Really?
going to be done, it has to be done at night because the impact on the day would just be devastating.
What time at night?
From 10 to 6 in the morning. And they'll be notifying those residents, and they're doing sound mitigation as much as they can, but this is the last phase of that that's going to affect us. And so I will keep you up to date. I will make sure it's social media.
I'll tell you just the one lane, and then today with the dirt trucks and the guys with the sign, really did not take long for that to back up this morning. Oh, yeah.
And if you look at the Triangle, they're working on manhole there.
Yeah.
And you can see the casing that they've made a big, and my point to them is, you know you're coming back and finishing our landscaping. Yeah, they will. They're all set to go.
Yeah, keep on them, Joe.
Politely, we might want to talk to Public Works at our traffic meeting about, so Martha Ann and Ruth Elaine, where they did that work on
I was
the
just going to
street
bring it up.
there.
You mean the hydrant?
Yeah, the hydrant and that line. because
We might want to, Joe, bring water company, because they're the ones that did it, our water company, but I like the traffic meeting, and someone from Public Works. Again, they did an okay job, okay, with that T-top that they told us that they were going to do, but you know, this county policy where you can't cut brand-new streets, you know, Wallingford is not going to it's not going to stay the way, it's not going to last as long with the way they've cut it and then T-topped it. You know, it's going to be, the obsolescence is going to build up much quicker now because they've cut the road, especially the lines that go across Wallingford. So, sure, I mean, I would like to know, like, why didn't this, and I'll use Director Maynard's stress test on our hydrant before they did all the streets, okay? Because that's what the gentleman said from the water company is, hey, we stress test them every year or whatever, and they were failing, so we had to replace them. Well, I mean, again, why wasn't this coordinated? I already know the answer, but, you know, we can still ask them why it wasn't coordinated better. Why are you, at the very least, why aren't you coming to the district and saying, hey, we got to cut into the brand-new streets and not, remember, he told us this 2 weeks before they were going to start cutting into the streets. So I agree with you, Director Searles. If we can get them there just for an update on traffic, Joe, or you can bring them here at our next meeting. You know, traffic's going to be probably a little more subtle, but I'm still going to ask the same questions.
You're talking Ken Vaccarelli, the
Yep,
gentleman.
him, but even Public Works, because, you know, Ken's going to say, oh, hey, they gave me the permit, okay? So it's like someone else. If you don't bring Public Works or ask them to be on the phone, so when Ken says, oh, it's Public Works allowed it, but there's this ordinance in Orange County that says you can't cut within 3 years of a new street. So again, how did this occur? Was it an emergency? Great, so if it's an emergency, why wasn't the district told?
This is on Wallington.
Disconnect.
This is all throughout, no, this is Ruthie Lane.
North Rossmoor.
It's North Rossmoor, it's a quadrant. And another question, Joe, is are they going to continue doing this throughout Rossmoor to where pretty much all our streets are going to be cut up? Yeah.
Do they have a plan?
I don't know.
That's the question, right?
The problem is,
Committee, they need to be invited.
one hand wasn't talking to the other.
Yeah.
Right.
We had our streets done.
Disconnect.
And they completely, I don't know if it was COVID related, completely ignored that, or didn't know that, hey, this other project is coming behind them.
Yeah.
That's,
Because how did we get there? We were talking about what was going on at the Triangle.
Oh, how did we get to this?
How did we get from there to there?
Well,
I'm
like
just-
Director
did I-
Searles, I did fire hydrant. I was going to ask Joe.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of these projects that are outside of Rossmoor that we don't get, even, at least with the trunk project, it was several months before that
Yeah.
they came in, talked to us.
Right.
We made them go out, and I say we made them go out and talk to the residents, okay, and inform them, get information from the ones that are highly impacted on the Yellowtail Curve, and especially on that Triangle area, because they're going to be impacted at night. It's going to be,
Okay, yeah.
right?
Okay.
So at least we had several months, and we even discussed scheduling. They even asked us, you want it during the day, what part of the night? So
Okay.
they're asking us. We don't get like the same from other departments, like, again, the water company, who is in, water companies in Los Alamitos, all right, we're going to change the fire hydrants. Yeah, but we just got brand new streets.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but you're not supposed to cut. Again, from my recollection.
In Rossmoor.
In Rossmoor.
See, the Seal Beach, that's actually Seal Beach. So cities get to make their own rules.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. But again, they're only cutting up our triangle. Everything else was on Los Alamitos. Again, they didn't have to come talk to us. Now I'm talking about the trunk project.
Yeah.
But they did, okay? So someone recognized, hey, we should talk to Rossmoor, which they did. It's just, we're not getting the same level of communication, transparency from other departments, and we did not get it from the water company. Okay, we did not get it. 2 weeks, it was in January, I believe, or December, and I asked him, when are you cutting? And he said, oh, next week. And I'm going, what? So, if you can, get them there. Let's just ask them to, there's not much we can do. Like I said, they did a good job in covering it, but as you all know, you have a brand-new street and you cut it, dig it down, I don't care how you pack it, it's not the same as a brand-new street.
Yeah, the crown's not even.
No, you're right, it is not. You go over it on Walling's Front and Ruthie Lane and Martha Ann, you go over it, there's a little bit of a bump, okay?
Well, we always talked about speed bumps.
I knew you were going to say
They
that.
said
I think
Wrong
they
place,
They
wrong
said that it was
place.
going to be.
Sorry.
No, I think they're
People
going
are
to
going
start
too
going
fast.
this way.
Yeah.
So, okay. What else? That it, Joe?
that concludes my report, yeah.
Okay. All right, so go ahead, Director Searles, why don't you start it off?
Actually, I don't have anything in addition. Parks
Okay.
and facilities, traffic,
Mhm.
those are the two big things.
Okay.
I hope people will show up.
Yep.
In anticipation for parks and facilities, clearly pickleball's an item. To Joe, I'd ask that we get either Bo, the tennis pro, to attend, or to kind of give us his thoughts on what's going on with tennis and pickleball. I know he came to one of our committee meetings and was very helpful in just saying what's really going on with tennis and what's, the perception versus what's actually going on. I would love to have his thoughts, so.
Dr. Mader?
One, I've already made a comment about the graduation parade, which was outstanding. Had a great turnout. Really want to thank the community, because it's not much of a parade if no one's out there cheering and the people aren't lining the streets. And the beauty of our parade is we get to host 3 schools in our community, and they got to drive around each one and reflect and think about it. So it's always an outstanding event. I want to thank, this is one of the things that RHA and Joe Shade have been doing for years, and it's an outstanding event. I'm glad I got to participate in it. And being the kickoff to our summer event, I think was innovative. So hats off to our district and Mr. Mendoza for doing that. And then the next item up is just to be communicative and just to let everybody know things I'm going to be working on. I own a direct-to-consumer brand. I have it hosted by Shopify, which is like a $9 billion company, pretty much the strongest platform for e-retailing. And I've noticed if anyone orders from Rossmoor, they are going to pay the Los Alamitos sales tax. And that's because it's tied to a zip code 90720. I also have an Amazon merchant account that does fairly well too. And even with the power of Amazon, it's hit or miss depending on who the merchant is. So I am going to reach out. I have a plan that I think would work. And this is Michael as a consumer, but since I'm on this board, I just want everyone to be aware that I'm doing this because I think it's wrong. I think there's a fix. It's going to, because it's a post office thing, it's going to require some work with Michelle Steele, who I happen to know. But bottom line, there used to be a zip code called Rossmoor, 90721. And it used to be over kind of where that, basically the parking lot in front of Farmers Merchant Bank. At one point in the 80s, the post office said we don't need both. It went away, and they pushed everything to 90720. Believe it or not, if you actually use the zip code 90721, you'll still get it. So my vision is if we can, by law federally, reactivate it, and the feds can somehow tell Los Al, you are still going to process 90721, then that 90721 as a trigger, for lack of better words, can trigger what the unincorporated Orange County tax is. Because I'm figuring out, just based on industry, percentage of people who buy online, percentage of people who buy weekly, percentage of just doing that drill down math times the 3,700 homes we have here, Los Alamitos is getting sales tax revenue of an extra 1.5%, and my calculation is they're probably getting about $180,000 of Rossmoor tax income that should have never been taxed. And I don't see them wanting to do anything to give that back to our residents or make our community any more beneficial. But I'm taking the lead on this because I'm a business owner who thinks it's wrong. And currently, I'm actually trying to talk to Shopify experts. They're out of Canada. It's just like, how does it work? How does it trigger? And I just want to let you know I'm going to be an advocate for this to figure out, is there a way that we can get the 90721 area code to work to be properly indexed to unincorporated Orange County sales tax, and then to see if we can get Los Alamitos Post Office to, by law, have to deliver 90721. So it's just a lot of background triggers and program that needs to happen, but it starts with me reaching out to our local congresswoman. So just wanted to give you a heads up.
That it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Shade.
I want to thank Ms. Janae for coming in from the Youth Center. I'm a huge advocate for the Youth Center myself, and have been for years. So thank you, Ms. Janae, for coming on in and telling us all about Camp Shark, and we'll be supportive of that. I love that, as always. We will miss the Bluebird ladies here, you know, telling us all about that, but I'm sure we'll get updated next month. Let's see, I appreciated all the comments that were made by the pickleball groups. They come in, they're passionate, they're advocates. whether they're pro or against. They're trying to make their voices be heard, so I would encourage the board to please, listen to those voices and take them seriously, and consider all the different, issues that they're having, and let's really think about what we're doing in our community before we make that final vote. It's important that we are considerate of all of our residents, and I just want to mention that. That being said, thank you, Michael, for coming to the parade and participating in it. It was important for you to be there as representing the board, and I appreciated you being there and loved having you there, just saying. And both at the parade and here at the park, it was wonderful. Really nice community support. Joe, thank you for all your support that you do for that event. I mean, 100%. And throughout the day, we already had our meeting for the next year as our pros and cons and yays and nays, what went well, what didn't, all that kind of stuff. And I'll be speaking to Chris and Joe about changes that we do to make sure everything is implemented smartly. And the beer garden, I know that wasn't a big hit. We didn't really advertise it. We just want to see how it rolled out, kind of thing. So that's not, I wasn't really concerned about it, whether it wasn't my concern for it to be a huge hit. There wasn't that much people. It was early during the day, so I knew it was going to be kind of a, there's not going to be that crowded. That being said, I look forward to next year, and I thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you. I don't have much. You guys kind of stated everything. Tarquin, what's your thoughts on the zip code? Because we talked about it a couple years ago when LoSal raised theirs. Any comment on what Director Maynard is saying in terms of perhaps our residents getting overcharged on purchases, mainly online, but any vendor that's set up that uses 90720 that may get the wrong tax rate? Any comment on on that subject?
Yeah, thank you, President DeFargo. It should be on. Okay. So, I understand Director Maynard's suggestion, and it certainly has merit at the federal level. It's obviously one would have to deal with federal bureaucracy. It's in theory, if the zip code, if the Seal Beach tax is LaSalle tax gets arbitrarily applied to a zip code that the tax doesn't apply to, changing the zip code may fix that glitch, so to speak. The other alternative, of course, is for anyone who is not a resident of LaSalle but is nonetheless paying the tax for a service that's not provided in LaSalle, they may have recourse, but that's private between them and the city of LaSalle and their taxation ordinance.
But do you feel that there is potential harm done to a resident who buys something substantial and gets charged another 1.5%, and shouldn't that almost be, I believe it should be fixed, but it's almost like if that's indeed occurring, shouldn't Los Alamitos have to return it?
It's a complicated question. I can speak in generalities.
Sure.
Obviously, if a resident has been, or a non-resident has been, or a resident of Rossmoor, let's put it that way, someone who's not a resident of LaSalle, is not subject to a taxation ordinance, and they're nonetheless paying the taxation ordinance, they may have recourse against the city of LaSalle and may be able to seek a refund from the city.
All right.
Yeah, and what's weird is utility companies are really good. When you look at your gas bill, they have a sophistication that they've identified Rossmoor as different.
Yeah.
So by the way, anyone watching TV, if you think LaSalle, Rossmoor, it's not the same, you will save money on your utility by writing Rossmoor and not LaSalle.
Absolutely. I
But-
have to say, in our industry, I'm in the real estate industry, and that's something that we stress. You should always put Rossmoor on your
Yeah, well-
address, and everything you fill out, everything that you do, you should always put Rossmoor to avoid that issue. Go buy a car, and people don't think about it. It's
Yep.
just like,
Yeah.
they're not
Don't say
paying
Los
attention.
Alamitos, yeah.
You got a big purchase, you got to make sure you're using Rossmoor.
Yeah, and I get it when I go to Los Al, and I go to that Vons and I buy a grocery, I get it. They get that sales tax, that's where I
Right.
went. But when I'm shopping off of Amazon, and just so you know, I do have an Amazon merchant appointment coming up with this topic on it. Because if I can get at least Amazon, because you would think, and with Amazon, Amazon has these different worlds, and even Prime within Amazon, it's still the way the merchant works within Amazon.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes I'm seeing that they get it right. The last 3 purchases, I'm
Most
tallying it,
don't.
not that I need the $2.86 or whatever difference it was, but I could tell you that I do a lot of online shopping. And I do a lot of online selling, so we'll see how well it
Yep.
goes, but I
Keep
think,
us in the loop.
I do know
Director Maynard.
Michelle Steele will humor me and answer my call.
Okay.
And
If I
that's
could,
where
if
it
I could,
starts.
if I could add, given that these are, the transaction is, the merchant is collecting the tax based on the zip code
Right.
that they believe is in Los Al, and then remitting it to, or portion, remitting it to Los Al itself, there may be a nexus, maybe a lack of a nexus between the residence payment and Los Al. I mean, it's a complicated issue, but it certainly could be raised with Los Al, but it's more directly tied to the merchant. The recourse itself.
It is the merchant.
Might be against the merchant.
It's the merchant who collects, and it's the
Right.
merchant who pays California. Trust me, I'm having to do it with a lot of different states.
It's an interesting discussion, and I know we've had this a couple years ago when Los Al raised it, so keep us in the loop. It's
It is
very
affecting
interesting.
people's
Yeah.
pocketbooks. They
Yep.
don't
It's
know
always gonna
about
be an
it,
issue.
but
1.5% adds up through a course of a year.
if you have a wife like mine, yes, it does.
All right, and then lastly, summer is upon us, and just be cautious, aware, the kids are out, some early mornings, some late at night, and all the time in between. Keep the speeds down, and pay attention, and at night, please pay attention. We have dark areas in Rossmoor, especially Montecito. Please pay attention to any pedestrian, but certainly our young kids that are on bikes and walking. So with that, we're going to,
Closed session.
Tarquin, do you have anything?
No, just closed session.
Okay.
He
All right,
handles that mic, so-
we're going to adjourn and move to item L, which is a closed session, and we will be back momentarily with any reportable. Yes, thank you. All right. What do I need? I need
Hey, so Wi-Fi worked? Huh. So you think YouTube worked, huh? Yeah, we're trying to cable for us. Oh. All right. What's up, man? But I did reset the router. That's all right. They're in closed session, they kicked me out, so. So what's up, how's Lauren? Oh, they're good. She's good, she's working on her homework. Yeah. All right. Does she want one? Do you want a drink, please? Sure. How long are you gonna be? We just drove through, not too long ago. About another 20 minutes. So, yeah, I'll tell you. So, car's okay and all that? Yeah, I got it and all that. I told the guy he got it. It needs power. I got it and told the guy. How they actually crazy. Yeah. They charge $7. So. Oh. All right, I'll call you when I get in the car. Okay. 10 o'clock.
No, I thought this was going to be so promising. Yeah, well, when we,
So promising.
you and I talked too much.
Where are we getting our RCSD flag?
Oh, we have one drawn up? Good.
Cool.
Good question.
Oh, and don't leave, I've got your magnets. I've got the board of director card magnets in my car.
Let me know, gentlemen, when I can start. Okay. All right, we're back to our meeting. Tarquin, can you report out our closed session?
Yes, President DeMarco. At approximately 9:30, the Board of Directors recessed into closed session. Approximately 10 p.m., the Board of Directors reconvened from closed session into open session. The Board of Directors took two reportable actions during the closed session. The first item, the Board of Directors authorized a potential bonus for employees in the amount of an amount not to exceed a total impact to the budget of $9,100, to be further determined by the organizational committee. The second action, the Board of Directors in closed session authorized a one-time performance-based bonus to the general manager in the amount of $7,500.
Not a bonus, a salary increase.
Salary increase, a performance-based salary increase.
That's it.
In the amount of $7,500, excuse me. And that is the end of the report.
Okay. Thank you. I move to adjourn.
Second.
There you have it.
All right.
Thank you all.
Okay.